The UK has a bit of an odd tax year compared to the majority.
She's so polite.
Compared to the majority of other countries. An awful lot of other countries have a calendar tax year starting 1st of January to the 31st of December. The UK, I think it follows the Georgian tax or the Georgian.
Is it Georgian or Gregorian, something like that?
Could be.
Something to do with popes, probably.
Yes. So it's the 6th of April to the following 5th of April. Quite why we've stuck with that, I don't know.
Because we can't change anything in the country. So changing the tax year to something that makes sense would obviously be completely out of the question.
Yes.
They can change tax rates upwards. They're quite good at that. But that's another point again.
But tax brackets, no, they have to stay put.
Exactly.
So the tax year sits differently to any other tax year. I think as well it's worth noting that for a lot of countries, you have to file.
There's always some sort of filing requirement that people have to do themselves.
Yeah, at the end of the tax year. And in the UK, that's not necessarily always the case.
I think I was reading somewhere that of the 30 odd million taxpayers in the UK, only about 6 or 7 million people end up doing an actual tax return themselves.
Which makes sense. And actually, I would say that HMRC are actively trying to push people out of the tax return system.
Yeah.
Which I can understand why they might want to do that. But the downside to them doing that is people aren't necessarily aware of additional, like, they're thinking, oh, I don't have to file a tax return, that's great. But actually, they might not necessarily realise that they maybe have to reconcile their position slightly outside of the tax return system. For example, say you've got an additional rate taxpayer. Historically, if your income levels were above £100,000, you had to file a tax return. You had to report your position because your payroll was always out of kilter because of the loss of your personal allowance. Any interest that you received that had taxes owing would get picked up as part of that process. You'd pay your taxes. Now, because HMRC aren't putting a limit as to your income levels, they are asking, like, you're not necessarily having to file a tax return, and your interest levels will be taxable. And unless you're reporting that to HMRC, chances are you're probably doing something a little bit wrong.